Hello, friends. Welcome to, I think this is the 10th episode of my new podcast, Secrets of a Witch, with me, Sabrina Scott, aka Witchy Person Extraordinaire, if you don't know me, but it does seem like everyone is listening to these in order, which is wild and cool and unnecessary, but it's interesting. Either way, thank you for listening. I am so happy that, I don't know, the numbers are just increasing and I'm over here like in a good way. So anyway, what I wanted to talk about today actually has fucking not much to do with witchcraft, to be honest. And that is why I call this podcast Secrets of a Witch, because I am a witch and these are my secrets for life about magic and life and love and all that stuff. But I wanted these lessons and these musings and these thoughts to be available and interesting to everybody, kind of, like, even if you don't care about witchcraft, like, yeah. So this is inspired from something that happened in my own life recently that I've been just reflecting on and thinking about and chatting with friends about and all of that. And this is the idea of the core wound. And I believe that everyone has at least one kind of core wound. Like, my disclaimer here is I'm not a therapist, I'm not a psychologist. Like, I've studied a lot of stuff for my PhD, and so I do feel like I know a lot of things, but at the same time, I'm not accredited, so that's my disclaimer here. So take what I'm about to say with a grain of salt, I suppose, but balance it out with, going to therapy and all that stuff. So, core wound. It's a concept that kind of keeps poking up, like, every now and then in a really surprising way. No matter how much I've healed certain things, it's still like, oh, I'm like really upset today. Why is that? And I go to therapy and my therapist, it was this like amazing gay man. He's like my gay surrogate dad. I love him. And he's like, oh, well, your core wound was activated. And I'm like, oh shit, you're so right. How did I not see that? And so my core wound, which has to do with my childhood and my parents and all of that fun stuff, is not feeling or being heard. So speaking what I had to say, but having that fall on ears that could not or would not or chose not to hear me or validate or respond to anything that I said. Ever. And my cat just showed up to say hi. This is Choya, my littlest one. So we'll see if she says hi again. But my core wound of not being heard, not feeling heard, comes from that. It comes from experiencing some bad things in my childhood, which I won't get into now, but feeling those bad things and speaking up about it to my parents, let's say, and having what I said completely ignored, dismissed. I was called insane. I was called crazy. I was called ungrateful, blah, blah, blah. I'm sure you guys know the story or are familiar with what that type of situation might look like or sound like. And so I did know when I was a kid that how I was being treated was not right. I spoke up about it and asked to be treated differently. That speech of me standing up for myself and saying no was never honored, was never validated, was just ignored in some cases, as though I had never said anything at all. And I was just talking to a wall, when in fact, I was speaking to a fellow human. And so that always fucked up my brain when I was a kid. That was the biggest component of my complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which I got from childhood, which I won't really talk about now in detail, just that little tidbit because it's relevant right now. But that was really traumatic for me to not ever be heard. When I was speaking up for myself, to stand up for myself, I was ignored and invalidated. And so today, as an adult, that is, to be honest with you, pretty healed. Like, my brain is normal now for the most part. Like, obviously, we all have our little niggling bits that are going to be there forever in some shape or form. That's what makes us us. That's what makes us unique. For sure, we're all unique people, and we all have things that bother us and trigger us and activate us and whatever, and that's okay. But to be honest, I've healed a lot over the past little while, and I feel like I've got some secure attachment now. I feel very happy, like 95% of the time. I feel emotionally even. I feel emotionally sober. I don't feel triggered almost ever. And so I feel pretty good most of the time. And I'm not saying that to show off. I'm just saying that to explain that even though I'm doing so good, that it's still possible to have these core wounds that, when it's reactivated, can trigger us and can be like, upsetting. And when this happened to me recently, I wasn't triggered in this sense that I went into like a spiral of misery. It was more like, wow, I feel really off today. Why do I feel off? I don't really know. I feel kind of upset. I don't know why. What's going on? And so when I recounted it to my therapist, he was like, well, obviously you just weren't heard, and that's like your core wound. So that's why you feel weird, like clearly. And so that is why this core wound stuff, I believe, is important to figure out. And it might take you some time and some therapy and some reading to sort out like what yours happens to be. Maybe there's more than one. I don't know. But for me, now that happened, because I haven't been like that randomly upset in like ages. But now that I had that conversation last night with my therapist about this whole concept of core wound and what that is for me, which again is not being heard, speaking and not being heard, not being allowed to speak, all that stuff. Now I feel like I'm going to keep that at the forefront of my mind, since so much of my other healing is done, at least for now. So I know it's an ever moving process, but I do feel like pretty done for now, for the most part. That is something I'm going to pay attention to whenever I do feel activated or a little bit upset out of the blue. I'm going to ask myself, was I not heard today? Or was I not heard recently about something? Did I speak up for myself recently and was I not validated? Or was I dismissed by somebody that was supposed to care about what I had to say? Always important to reflect on this stuff, because I do think it creates ripples in our lives. And sometimes good ripples, sometimes bad, So for me, obviously, that bad ripple is I get really upset by stuff. Well, not really, but like kind of upset when I'm not heard, which I do feel like is actually a reasonable response, because it teaches me that, oh, that person kind of sucks, or in some cases, oh, that person is a narcissist, actually. And I know that word gets thrown around, like everyone on the internet is a narcissist, apparently. But I've gotten into a lot of conversations with my therapist about what does make a narcissist. And one of those key things is they can't hear you, especially when you confront them with the reality of who they are and how they're behaving. Because they have this idea in their head about who they are, who they want to show themselves to be. And when someone cracks that facade, when someone pops the balloon, they get discarded, unheard, unseen, gone. And so that's a situation I found myself in a few times in the past. So it's interesting to reflect on, right? That's the negative side, is feeling activated by that stuff. And I've been in a few situations where I've encountered folks like that. Probably because some aspect of my being wants to heal that core wound by choosing a different path when I'm confronted with it. And that's a topic for another time, because it's a long one. But on the flip side, on the positive side, what have I done with this core wound of being really upset when I'm not heard? It's a different cat saying hi. I have created a business and a life that is centered around me speaking and me being heard. literally right now with this podcast, you are hearing me. I'm speaking to you. Oh my God, Awas, relax. Right? But even aside from that, my whole Instagram, my social media presence, blogging, writing, all of that is centered around me being heard and me sharing my ideas, my thoughts, my emotions, my things I've learned over the years, my healing process, the things I'm thinking about. My whole presence online and my career over the years has been about me allowing myself the space to be heard and giving myself permission to be heard by others. And so that's what y'all do. And so in many ways, having this business, being this public figure in a way, has been wildly healing for me with that core wound that I have. And I didn't do that on purpose. That was a very subconscious thing that I felt called to do. And obviously, in many ways, my business and my sharing and my writing isn't all about me. It's also about my drive and desire to help and teach other people overcome the things that I've overcome, because I know a lot of people who were in my shoes back when I was miserable and depressed and self-loathing and very traumatized and just so triggered 24/7. I know when I was that spot, I didn't think that there was hope for me. I thought I was going to die young. I thought, life was going to suck forever. I thought all these horrible things, and I thought there was no hope. And so part of the reason why I do what I do and why I speak what I speak on and why I speak about it so often and so boldly is because I want to help other people get out of whatever ruts they happen to be in, no matter what they've been through, especially people who have had crappy family situations. I really want to help people who are struggling to heal from that. And so my speaking is supposed to help and heal others. That is something that really drives me. But at the same time, my speaking and my being heard by you helps and heals me. So isn't that interesting? That this core wound that has hurt me over the years and given me so much pain is also what ultimately has healed me and what has been my biggest gift, because it has allowed me to speak so freely and fearlessly, which has been really a beautiful healing experience. So what is your core wound? And there's so many different ways to phrase that. I'm calling it core wound because I think it's an easy, evocative way to talk about it. But if you look back at your childhood, whether it was mostly happy or whether it was traumatic and terrible, there is going to be some wounding there probably. And if you notice what sets you off in your adult life more than anything else, you'll probably find what that wound is. And it can be so many different things. And if you're in therapy, which I'd recommend, talk to your therapist about it. I'm sure they probably have a pretty good idea of what it might be and could probably explain it to you if you ask them. Sometimes I have to tell my therapist to just give it to me. Give me the business. Tell me what is happening, because I don't understand. I'm feeling weird. I can't tell why. Explain. And so he will. So I highly recommend therapy for everybody, no matter how well-adjusted you think you are. I think everyone can always learn more about themselves and their underlying psychology and their motivations and their triggers and what is happening in your life and what is upsetting you can be this big gateway into healing and understanding the world and yourself. And I think that's just a really great use of everyone's time. Wherever you go, there you are, and it's just important. It'll help you vibrate at a different level. If you're not already in therapy, do it, please. Obviously, you don't have to, but my cat agrees that it's a good idea. So I just want to talk a little bit about that, this concept of the core wound, because mine for sure got fucked up over the past little while, and it's been so cool to take a step back and just observe what happened and why and how, being in that situation with a certain situation, that's all I'll say. If you know, you know. was really telling and definitely a huge learning experience, which triggers, big or small, always are a learning experience if you let them be. So I will leave you with that, my beautiful people. Happy day. I woke up with all 3 cats in the bed and the birds chirping. So I'm in a good mood and ready to have a good day, and I hope the absolute same for you. It's a long weekend here in Canada, so wherever you happen to be in the world, whenever you're listening to this, I hope you're enjoying your day, your weekend, your morning, whatever. This has been the Secrets of a Witch podcast with me, Sabrina Scott. You can learn more about me, book a tarot reading, whatever, at sabrinamscott.com. You can check out my super cool new clothing line, maybe buy a hoodie or 2 at shopsabrinamscott.com. And as always, you can say hello on the Instagrams at sabrinamscott. And I will catch you on the flip side. Bye, everyone.